Lady stumbled upon an interesting boy. Even though he was tied up from head to toe, he insisted he was just pretending to be a vending machine. Seeing that he didn't seem to need her help, Lady was about to leave. That's when the boy finally asked her to help him out. But after being untied, he made another request. He wanted Lady to pull out his loose tooth. This got Lady, who worked at a dental clinic, interested. She tied a thin string around his tooth, but when it came time to pull, no matter how hard Lady tugged, the boy kept moving along with her. He stubbornly claimed he wasn't scared, it was just that his body moved on its own. Lady suddenly had an idea. She threw the soda she was holding up into the air. The boy's attention was completely drawn to the soda. In the next moment, the soda actually turned into a penguin. As the penguin tumbled to the ground, the boy's tooth was yanked right out. Yet he didn't notice a thing. He thought Lady would be just as shocked as he was. But instead, she calmly walked over to the penguin and said she had no idea what was going on, then asked the boy to help her solve this mystery. The next day, Aoyama brought a pile of stuff for Lady to throw. One item after another went flying, yet even tossing another soda bottle didn't produce a single penguin. After thinking it over, Aoyama and Lady decided to recreate yesterday's scene from different angles, trying every possible way to throw the soda bottle, but still, no penguin appeared. Aoyama began to suspect that Lady was messing with him. Having wasted an entire morning, and irritated by Aoyama's doubts, Lady turned to leave. Aoyama quickly ran up to apologize. That night, after getting home, Aoyama carefully went over all the data from their experiment. The next day brought good news. Aoyama's friend Uchida had actually caught that same penguin and brought it to school, but the penguin refused to eat anything. They figured it probably couldn't adapt to the local climate. After talking it over, they decided to send it to a big city aquarium, but shortly after getting in the car, they heard a terrible cry from the cage. The penguin was drenched in sweat and barely hanging on. They had no choice but to stop and check. When they opened the cage, the penguin seemed guided by some invisible force, taking a few weak steps forward before collapsing. With one last desperate cry, the penguin turned back into a bottle of soda. Aoyama's eyes were filled not only with disbelief, but also with a firm resolve to uncover the truth. That evening he told Lady all his theories. He believed the penguin was created by some kind of energy, so it didn't need food to move, but it couldn't stray too far from the city, and the source of that energy was most likely Lady herself. Hearing this, Lady complained that she'd been losing sleep and having nightmares. As she told Aoyama how frightening the bats in her dreams were, the lights suddenly went out. The chess pieces on the table started shaking violently. Then the piece in Lady's hand turned into a terrifying bat, and all the other chess pieces on the board transformed into bats that flew wildly around the room. Seeing all this, Aoyama seemed to figure something out. He invited Lady to run another experiment. When the clouds cleared and sunlight shone down on them, Aoyama told Lady to throw a soda bottle. As it spun through the air, it turned into a penguin again. Aoyama explained his reasoning. The day they first saw the penguin had been sunny, but their first experiment was done under cloudy skies, so no penguin appeared. If they tried it at night, Lady would probably create nocturnal creatures like bats instead. But Lady didn't seem to care about his explanation. She was completely focused on making more penguins. The sky quickly darkened again. Rain began to fall. The two had no choice but to end their experiment. Lady brought Aoyama back to her house. Then she prepared a delicious meal for him. But strangely, Lady didn't eat a single bite. She just watched Aoyama as he ate. After dinner, they started playing chess again. But partway through, Lady grew drowsy. She simply lay down on the floor and fell asleep. Aoyama couldn't help blushing as he looked at her alluring figure. To avoid the awkwardness, he picked up his sketchbook and drew Lady as she slept. To figure out where the penguins were going, Aoyama and Uchida searched the forest for them every day. This caught the attention of their classmate Hamamoto. After school, she called the two boys over and led them deep into the woods. At the end of the forest, they discovered a grassland completely surrounded by trees, and floating above it was a giant water sphere. Hamamoto named it Sea. When Aoyama tried to get a closer look, he accidentally triggered the water sphere's defense mechanism. Hamamoto explained that the reason she brought them there was so they could study this mysterious sea together. It was summer vacation, and the three of them met in the forest every day, rain or shine, driven by their curiosity about the sea. As their research went deeper, Aoyama decided to explore the inside of the sea. Because of its protective barrier, He even built a thermometer just for the job. But when the thermometer went in, a powerful suction suddenly dragged Uchida toward the sea. The thermometer mysteriously vanished inside, and the sea began to give off a terrifying aura. Just then, Lady arrived with the penguins. While the two were talking, all the penguins gathered beneath the sea, pecking at its surface non-stop. The water instantly reacted, launching countless droplets into the air, smashing their lab equipment. One even shot straight at Uchida. At the critical moment, Lady threw a can, and it turned directly into a penguin that pecked through the water sphere. Afterward, Aoyama suggested adding Lady to their experiment, but Hamamoto flatly refused. She clearly didn't like Lady, and after saying so, she turned and left without hesitation. On the way back, they found the forest full of research staff. Aoyama immediately grew alert. He warned Lady not to make any more penguins if they got discovered. She'd be dragged off for testing. From that day on, strange things kept happening in town. Streetlights and vending machines mysteriously disappeared. Even mailboxes were destroyed. Witnesses claimed a seal-like monster was behind it. Aoyama and Uchida tried to head into the forest, but found roads blocked by workers. They had to look for another way in. Along the way, they saw a giant creature chasing a penguin. By the time they reached the meadow, the sea had grown even larger. Hamamoto was already there, recording data, watching the sea expand endlessly. Aoyama wanted to call off the experiment. He feared that with all these strange incidents, the sea's secret would soon be exposed. If outsiders took over their research, Lady's powers would be revealed, and she'd be in danger. But Hamamoto refused to quit. She thought Aoyama was only acting out of selfishness. The three of them parted on bad terms. What no one expected was that Hamamoto's father was one of the researchers. He found her diary, which documented their experiments, and mentioned Lady and the penguins. Curious about mysterious phenomena, he went straight to the dental clinic to find Lady, asking her to join his study. That night, Aoyama happened to run into Hamamoto's father leaving the clinic. A bad feeling came over him, so he rushed to find Lady. Before Aoyama could even speak, Lady said she'd been dreaming about the sea lately, and asked if he wanted to go see it that weekend. The next day, they met at the station as promised. At first they chatted and laughed, but as the train rolled on, Lady grew weaker and weaker. Thinking of the penguin from before, Aoyama hurried her off at the nearest stop. Coincidentally, it was the same station as last time. Lady seemed drawn by some unseen call, but after a few steps she collapsed. Sweat poured down her face, and every drop that hit the ground rolled forward on its own. Suddenly the earth began to spin, and eerie creatures appeared around them. To keep Aoyama safe, Lady forced herself to endure the pain until the strange phenomena finally calmed. Seeing her in agony, Aoyama offered her chocolate, but Lady said she couldn't eat anything. She hadn't eaten in 3 days, yet she felt no hunger at all. She had no idea why. Back home, Aoyama immediately began a hunger strike to test it himself, but after just 2 days he grew so weak that he collapsed. In his daze, he saw strange visions: whales floating in the sky, seals devouring penguins, and Lady standing there among them. She muttered that she had come from far, far away. Then she suddenly turned into a skeleton. Aoyama woke up in shock. Lady was sitting by his bed, watching over him. Even though his voice trembled with weakness, he still begged her to take care of herself. But Lady told him something even more shocking. She hadn't eaten anything for an entire week. That's when Aoyama realized Lady was probably just like the penguins, not truly human. With that thought, Aoyama wished he could grow up faster, as if becoming an adult would somehow fix everything. The next day at school, Suzuki bragged about catching a monster. The news spread quickly, and researchers came, loading Suzuki into a car and driving deep into the forest. Thinking of Lady, Aoyama ignored his friend's warnings and ran to her house. No matter how hard he shouted, there was no answer. He left his things there and headed straight for the forest. Uchida and Hamamoto arrived first, only to find the entrance blocked and a research outpost set up nearby. Hamamoto's father was leading the operation. Hamamoto begged her father to let her into the forest, but he sternly told her it was dangerous and ordered her to go home. Then Hamamoto heard Suzuki's voice. Believing he had betrayed them, she ran over and slapped him hard. Aoyama arrived just in time to see it, and that convinced him to abandon the sea research once and for all. But that very night, Hamamoto's father led a research team for a close-up investigation of the mysterious sea. The next day, the news reported on the sea. It was growing so large that it threatened the entire town. Then came an update on Hamamoto's father. He had gone missing during last night's exploration, sending Hamamoto into an emotional spiral. To help Hamamoto save her father, Aoyama decided to find Lady. Every school exit was guarded. Just as they were worrying, Suzuki appeared. Though he didn't know why Hamamoto was angry, he still hoped she would forgive him. With Suzuki's help, they climbed over the school wall. When police tried to catch them on the way, their classmates swarmed to distract the officers, giving Aoyama a chance to escape. On the road, police patrols were everywhere, and Aoyama had to sneak around to finally find Lady. He told her his findings. Both Lady and the penguins survived on the mysterious energy of the sea. Because he had stopped Lady from creating more penguins, the sea's energy could no longer be absorbed. That was why it kept growing bigger and bigger. The sea itself warped time and tore at space. Aoyama suspected this mysterious sea might actually be a hole in the world itself. So when the penguins destroyed the sea, they were really repairing the world. To help Aoyama solve the mystery of the sea, and to rescue the missing research team, Lady decided to take him inside. Along the way, Lady used her willpower to transform soda bottles, mirrors, red bricks, even flower pots and a broken motorcycle into penguins. Before long, a whole army of penguins gathered behind them. When police tried to stop them, Lady commanded the penguins to charge. As they ran, they even rode a train made entirely of penguins. The penguin population kept increasing, driving away even the seals that had been hunting them. Soon they rushed straight into the mysterious sea along with the penguin swarm. When they woke up, they had reached the end of the world. Led by the penguins, they passed through a ruined neighborhood, where houses either floated in the air or sank underwater. After crossing the vast surface of the sea, they arrived at the town Lady had seen in her dreams. In the plaza stood the missing research team led by Hamamoto's father. As they spoke, the penguin army surrounded them. Lady ran to the edge of the plaza and gave a single command. All the penguins shot into the air like scissors slicing through the sky. The great water sphere shattered, and a flood poured down the streets. The penguins quickly pecked apart the remaining small water spheres, while the monsters climbed onto high platforms and vanished. At last, Lady brought Aoyama back to the same cafe where everything had started. They sat, drinking coffee, watching the penguins outside grow fewer and fewer. They didn't say goodbye, but every silence felt like farewell. Aoyama resolved not to cry. He believed he would see her again. When that day came, he would tell her he loved her. The last penguin disappeared. Lady reluctantly stood up, stepped outside, and waved to Aoyama. In an instant, she was gone. From that day on, all the missing objects in town reappeared on the streets, covered in moss. The end of the world was the sea. The entrance to the sea was the forest. The road to the forest was the Penguin Highway. And walking the Penguin Highway was a boy chasing his dream. Every story of youth feels like a dream. Those who long for it imagine it with excitement. Those who have lived it recall it with bittersweet longing. That summer's events were like a fantastic Midsummer Night's Dream. The adults called it a collective hallucination, but for Aoyama it was all too real. The probe he found in the empty lot was proof. Maybe it didn't matter whether any of it was real. The story had already carved itself into his heart. A boy has to grow up. Life is long, yet also fleeting, so don't lose your sense of wonder. Life may wear down your edges, but no one really wants to become a boring adult.